Welcome, everyone. The class that we are in today is my English 210, Rulership and the Politics of Resistance. In this class, we consider that in 16th and 17th century England, there was no clear-cut legal precedent for deposing a ruler who was abusing their power. Little legitimate ground existed for challenging kingly will. So, at the same time, the possibility of resisting and removing tyrannical leaders was in the process of acquiring precedent in legal writings to such an extent that the legal discipline was being totally transformed and being turned into a new discipline. So really exciting times. In a more simple way, what we're doing in this class, and it's extremely timely because this is an election semester, we look at what encompasses a good leader, what encompasses poor leadership, abuse of power, tyranny, how to differentiate between those categories in primarily literary contexts. And we also look at the extent to which it's possible to oppose a leader who is abusing their power. So we're kind of looking at both ends of it. What we're doing a lot in the class is reading political philosophy, again, in relation to literature, primarily Renaissance literature, but we begin with the ancient classics. And engaging these themes, I love to bring my classes to Lowe Art Museum, where we are looking similarly at art from various periods in order to provide a richer and more complex course content. So on tour at the Lowe, students consider how visual art emerges to help record, mitigate, and oppose political adversity rather, in foremost times of crisis. Exploring these objects closely, students are ideally motivated to consider art itself as a powerful political tool, influenced and shaped by different social conditions and circumstances, which has the potential to provide the foundation for collective action in addition to collective healing. Students who attend this tour, again, ideally will gain familiarity with the many ways art has the potential to encourage post-traumatic development and renewal following political crisis. And what's especially striking is that in many of these objects, these paintings and sculpture, political upheaval is portrayed as manageable, temporary, changeable, and in some cases potentially workable towards reconciling differing worldviews or creating shared vocabularies to overcome difference. So in this cross-disciplinary experience of considering literature with art in this class, students have various opportunities to develop ways of considering connections between personal experience and the larger social and political arena.
Great. Well, I should introduce myself. My name is Hope Torrents, and I work at the Lowe Art Museum. I've been there for 20-some years, and Dr. Oldman and I have been working together for about 8 years now. And normally she would come to the museum. She would send me her syllabi, for her classes, and we would walk around the museum and look at objects or images that would maybe connect to the themes pulled out from the readings. Obviously, the doors are closed right now to the museum, so we were unable to get into the museum, but actually this has been almost a sort of serendipitous happening for us, because normally when we bring students in, people into the museum, we only see about 2% of what we have in terms of our collection on view. And so we have over 20,000 objects and images in our collection. So we were able to mine the whole collection, if you will. And we have objects and images that date back over 5,000 years from lots of different cultures. So it was kind of it was a unique opportunity for us to really look at other things besides what's on view. Um, so this is really about looking at works of art, and we've selected 3 objects for you to look at today. Dr. Oldman and I talked about what might work well, and this is about your ideas, your perspectives on what is going on in the works of art. This is not about having an art history background or knowing a lot about art. It's really about you mining the works of art for meaning. And maybe if you are able, relating to some of the readings that you've done in the class. But really, this is an opportunity for you to enjoy just participating in a discussion. So what I'm going to do is show you some works of art, ask you some questions. If you could just take yourself off of mute when you want to talk, that would be great. So we don't talk over each other and we hear what everybody has to say. And so if there are no questions, we can get started. So take a moment and look carefully at this piece. So what's happening here?
At first glance, it looks like she's beheaded someone, almost like a queen beheading someone, either to make an example, or for any reason that a queen would have to behead someone. And then, but I would think it would be almost like, or the man in the background makes it look almost like she's doing it to set an example because there are people lusting after her or lusting after her crown, and she needs to stop that and have it, because it does look like he's looking at her in a way that would suggest either thoughts of betrayal or thoughts of taking that crown. I don't know if I really enunciated that very well or put that into words very well.
Absolutely. So Colby, I just wanted to ask you, so a couple of things you said. It looks like she's just beheaded the figure. What do you see that makes you say that?
The head in her hand does not look, and the sword in her other, it looks like she's beheaded, even if there's no blood to suggest that.
Okay. And so you're seeing this head in her hand and a sword. And then you said it looks like she's a queen of some sort. What do you see that makes you say that?
The crown or the laurels in her hair.
Okay, so
that and the vibrantly colored robes, like golds and reds, are very traditionally royal.
Okay, so the clothing she's wearing, the headpiece, and then one other thing you said, which was it almost looks like this is possibly a subject of hers that's looking like he or she has been betrayed in some way. And what do you see that makes you say that?
Not that they've been betrayed, but that they're contemplating betraying her. The way they're eyeing the crown, the look of almost like it looks deceitful. It looks like they are behind her back, and it looks like they're going behind her back in another less literal sense too.
Okay, so figuratively, literally, the figure is behind her. So maybe sort of stabbing in the back kind of idea. And then the way the gaze of the figure up here is almost directly at the headpiece, thinking maybe there's some sort of want of usurping this position in some way. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good. What more can we find?
I find it interesting to see that the queen figure and the figure in the background, either one of them are looking at the actual head. They're both looking away. Especially the queen, that looks like as if she was the one that had the action and did the beheading herself. She's not looking directly at the head, almost as if maybe, I don't know, she's not strong enough to look at the person of who she just killed. And also it looks like she's blushing almost. She has some reddish on her cheeks. Yeah.
Okay, so Adrian's noticing the gaze of both of these figures, which is out here somewhere, not looking at the head itself. And then you're also noticing the flushed cheeks and wondering about that. So you're wondering if there's a reason why this figure, particularly who's holding the head, is not looking directly at the head, wondering about that. Is that right?
Yes,
Great.
exactly.
Great. What more can we find?
She looks very like pristine, like despite having just like beheaded someone. Her makeup's like still perfect, and she doesn't have any blood or anything on her.
Okay, Kathleen. So when you say pristine, you're talking about sort of the fact that no blood, as far as you can see. Her makeup looks like it's perfectly intact, and for having just maybe cut off this head, she looks pretty good. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like almost like it didn't like phase her at all. Her crown still like perfectly on her head and everything.
So Kathleen, when you say almost looks like it didn't phase her, what specifically are you looking at when you say that?
I guess like her facial expression and
Okay, what about her facial expression says unfazed to you?
she doesn't look very distressed. She's just like straight blank faced, and like she's just casually holding his head. And she's not like disheveled or anything at all, which you would think she might be after just having cut off someone's head.
Okay, great. So you're looking at her facial expression. It doesn't seem to be a look of distress or sort of surprise at what just happened. And you said she doesn't look disheveled in any way. Her hair is intact, her headpiece is intact, and she's just holding this head as if sort of very nonchalantly. Great. What more can we find?
I noticed there was it looks like a sort of feline figure on the bottom. So I'm wondering what exactly that is. And there's like two white, it looks like mattresses, I assume. So is she like on a couch or perhaps a bed or of some sort?
Okay, Anthony, great. So you're noticing some other details in the image. You're looking down here at the bottom of the image and noticing this cat-like feline figure, and then thinking about right here, you're talking about the space right here,
Yeah.
thinking it could be a couch or maybe even a bed of some sort. And what do you see that makes you think that?
Which it just looks sort of like two stacked white mattresses of some sort, and she's kind of just laying on it. So I'm wondering if she perhaps beheaded the person on her bed, or if she brought the head to her bed or to a couch that she had. I'm not sure. But.
Okay, great. So now you're thinking about something else. You're thinking about the setting where this is taking place. And you're wondering if it's on the bed, and if what sort of preceded the beheading, if she brought the head to the bed, if she actually cut the head off on the bed. So great. So we're thinking about lots of different things here, where this is happening, who this person is, the storyline. Doing a great job, all of you, sort of trying to put the puzzle together here, figure out the story. Wonderful. What more can we find? Valentina, you have any thoughts? Did I do it?
I mean, it has
Yeah.
to be addressed to her, Ella.
Sorry, I was
That's okay.
noticing the gray colors under the right there. So I was thinking that could maybe be like a suit of armor, even though it's hard to tell the material. Like it looks a little bit shiny, so he could have been some kind of soldier.
So are you thinking this sort of could belong to the head? Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, I see that as a whole body right there.
Oh, you see this as his body.
Yes,
Okay.
like his
All
chest.
right. So we have different ideas. And what do you see that makes you think it might be attached to the body or to the head?
Well,
What do you see that makes you... Sorry.
I just see that the head is like over this round shape that could be a chest, but also that cloth is kind of draped over it. Maybe that cloth under his head could have been covering his head.
Okay.
It was
So
like an execution.
Okay, great. So you're wondering if this, are you talking about this fabric here that's underneath?
Well, more so of the one directly under his face.
Oh, right here.
That looks like a different color, yeah.
Okay, so you're wondering if that somehow is part of his clothing or what he was wearing. Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. So different ideas. Love that. You know, we're going in, you know, have different ideas is great. What more can we find? What more can we say about this figure?
Also, I would say the fact that this painting, it shows her entire body, while the figure in the back is just her head, and also the man's face is just his head. But for the queen, it's her entire body that's being shown, from her top of her head to her feet. Maybe showing her importance in the land that she's in.
Great, Andrea. And so now you're talking about the composition of the piece and the fact that this figure predominates or dominates the image, that you can see the entire sort of from head to toe, the entire figure. Whereas here we see sort of the head and maybe the shoulder, and here we're seeing the head. So you're thinking that this is a sign that this figure is very important to the story. Is that right?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, perfect. What more can we find? What more can we say about the figure? So the proportion of the figure to the other figures is larger. What more can we say about her? Does she look like a weak, frail? Adrian's saying yes, she looks weak and frail too.
No, I was agreeing. I also noticed she looked kind of almost, maybe, I don't know, her arms look pretty big, and looks like she has a strong grip on the blade. So yeah, I also noticed that. I was agreeing with that.
Okay, great. So you're looking at her arm and thinking this is not somebody who looks like they have not had a meal in a while. She looks pretty strong. The way she's gripping the sheath says to you there's a sense of strength about her. Is that right? Great. What other qualities, things do you notice about her? Anybody? I haven't told anybody they're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to me. Like, I'd be curious to see like if it was like a man or woman who painted the piece, because like the reason like her breasts are out, I'm wondering if that's just like sexualizing her in some way, or if there's some sort of significance to that. Maybe as Colby said in the beginning, like the lust. Um, I'm not sure. It's also interesting, I guess, like they're different, like they have very different characteristics, the three different subjects. Like it almost seems like because she's like has a very soft look, whereas like the men have definitely harsher features. It almost look like they're like maybe outsiders of some sort, or maybe from a different part. I'm not sure. But yeah, and especially the guy in the back, you know, he's definitely skinnier too, which is in like contrast to her build.
Okay, Varen, thank you so much for pointing out the exposed breast. I know that's always, so you're seeing this exposed breast and wondering the significance of that. And Colby mentioned sort of the idea of lust, and you also mentioned the fact that she's softer. And what do you see that makes you say there's a softness to her versus the other figures? What do you see exactly that makes you say that?
I mean, the fact that she's portrayed in the light, which will like definitely it'll always make your skin, I guess, look softer, and they're definitely more in the shadows. And you know, she doesn't seem to like have any hair on her body, whereas like the other men definitely have a lot, which adds to like kind of the roughness of their skin. So she's definitely, and you know, she has blush also on her face, which definitely adds to that softness.
Okay, great. So you're bringing up a method that was created during this time period called chiaroscuro, which is the light versus dark. And so that sense of drama that's created by the light, and you say she is in the light. And can you be more specific about what you see that makes you say she is in the light?
What do I see that makes her seem like she's in the light?
Yes, exactly where you're seeing that happening. The
I
light.
guess like, yeah, it's just it seems like there's a light source like in the top left corner of the painting that's falling downwards, just like the way the highlights are on certain points, on like the higher points of the painting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's certain areas on her that are really accentuated by this light, and you're wondering about the source of the light, whereas these two figures look like they're more in the dark. They look a little like you said this figure has hair, and this figure looks like it is sort of the shade of the pallor of the skin is darker. So this figure is, we talked about sort of the proportion, the scale of the figure to the others, much bigger and sort of center, but also the light is really sort of illuminating much more this figure. Great. Where are we time-wise? I don't wanna, anybody else on this one? Y'all are, pulling out details that is really building on this story of, who this figure is, what the artist has done to create this sense of drama, and sort of the distinction between this figure, the clothes that she's wearing, the headpiece, even the color of her skin, juxtaposed to these figures. Who are these figures? How do they sort of rank? So. Wonderful. Any last thoughts? Great, you all are doing a wonderful job. This is Judith with the head of Holofernes. The artist is Pietro Dandini, and it was done around the time of circa 1646 to, sorry, 1670 to 1680, somewhere in that time period. So it was during the Renaissance. Anybody know the story of Judith and Holofernes? If you do, you can take yourself off mute. Nope. So Judith, it's the book that relates to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Assyria, who sent his general, who was Holofernes, on an expedition against Palestine. And Judith was this Jewish widow who pretended to leave as Holofernes' Assyrian army came into the camp, but she didn't leave. She stayed with her handmaiden, who is this figure here, and snuck into Holofernes' tent like 3 different times. There are sentries standing at the tent, at the front of the tent, and the handmaiden had this bag, and she seduced Holofernes several times. Before the last time, when she seduced him, he fell asleep and she cut off his head. And you see the hand, which is hard to see, actually, right here, holding the bag. And then she's looking out at the people, about to hold up the trophy, which was Holofernes' head, to show them the victory, that she had sort of slayed this horrible Assyrian general. And then they walked out with the head in the bag. So great job. So
I was going to talk a little bit more about the Judith and the reason for choosing it.
okay, I can go. Do you want me to go back to that?
Yeah, just for a sec, I just want to add something which I meant to add earlier. And for all of the images we saw today, I'm thinking of the literature in our class, and specifically with the Judith, I'm thinking about Sophocles' Antigone. And Antigone as a sort of warrior in defense of the godly eternal law, and her insistence on burying Polyneices, even though King Creon is insisting on his man-made law and, you know, prohibiting the burial. So many good points that you guys made. Kathleen was talking about the extent to which she seems pristine and unfazed. And similarly, Sophocles' Antigone, she has a sort of stoic, heroic quality, which makes her seem more like a stereotypical like male hero in, say, an ancient Greek epic. And so there's this sort of stoicism which both of those characters have. Another point about this canvas, for those of you who have taken my English 210, War and the Fashioning of Gender, we consider the same painting in conjunction with Shakespeare's late tragedy Coriolanus. And those of you who are familiar with that play know that Volumnia, the fierce anti-mother, is strongly identified with Rome, yet confined to domesticity, unable to participate in military action because it's a Renaissance context in the Shakespearean performance. And so she deliberately shapes her son Coriolanus as her surrogate in the world of male martial action. And the tragedy unfolds from there. So I think about this painting as well in relation to that Shakespearean text. And what's interesting about that is very similar time period between this painting and the Shakespeare. So that to me is especially interesting. One other point that I was thinking is both Colby and Varun were pointing out, like questioning the artist's decision to portray the exposed breast in this painting. And I think that's a really excellent question about it. And right when we start talking about this, Colby was talking about whether this is a representation of people lusting after her or lusting after her crown. And I was thinking there's such an interesting conflation on this canvas between the erotic and political, you know? So that was a really far-reaching observation that Colby made. So thank you for that.
As I said, Dr. Oldman and I have been working together for a long time, and this is a painting that's up in the museum now. So I've looked at it thousands of times. I've been at the museum for 20 some years, and I use this image a lot to elicit discussions. And every time I do, I hear something different, something new, which speaks volumes to the power of art and what people bring to the looking of art, their own sort of experiences, background knowledge, understandings. And you seem to relate this to your readings in many ways, which was really fascinating to me to hear, you know, how you made those connections. Not sure even you were aware of him, but you know, it was really interesting that you did that just naturally. So I appreciate your
it's really
thoughtful.
Looking at the art in like with both informal and formal writing assignments. You know, it's really enables a deeper consideration of, you know, in the case of this class, the political content.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was great. And Anthony, I am sorry about your internet. I know you had a lot to say, and I apologize that I wasn't able to hear everything, but I got the gist of what you were saying, I think. So it was great. Great. If there are no other questions or comments, I think
All
it's
right.
been a great experience. Thank you very much.
Well, have a great weekend, you guys, and I will email you confirming stuff for next week. All right.
Thank you.
Stay
Thank you.
safe. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good one.
Whew.
Oh, all right. Mute during that last. Did I cut like?
Who, Anthony?
No, me. Like when I was talking about the whole wrap up thing with the different associations. Was I
No,
like?
no. You weren't on mute. Oh, well, let me stop the recording. No, you weren't on mute.
Oh, okay. Cool. I thought I was. Like,